Healed listeners, thank you for joining us tonight and welcome, or whenever you're listening. I am here with Katie Williamson, who is the sweetest girl that I just met and who shared her amazing story with me. Katie is married with one child, Walt, and she lives in Rutledge. She attends Helton Springs Baptist Church, and she is a part-time rural carrier assistant, and she stays home part-time with her son, Walt, who the story is all about. So we want to share Walt's story of healing with you, and this is going to be a little different from some of my other interviews because Walt's healing did not come through natural health and nutrition. Walt's healing came straight from the Lord, and it's such an amazing story. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening, and I hope this provides hope and some healing to you. So we're going to get started. Katie, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for doing this.
So tell me about Walt. How old is Walt now?
He is over 2.5 years old. He's going to be 3 in August.
Okay, and tell me about Walt as a baby. Was he a pretty healthy baby?
Yeah, he was healthy. He was born 3 weeks early, but we didn't have any complications from the hospital. He didn't sleep until he was about 10 months old. But for the most part, he was a happy, healthy baby. I felt like people would say, walk by us, and they would just smile. He just kind of had that happy baby, and he made others smile too.
That's awesome. You love to see a baby like that.
I know, he was just always happy.
So what happened when he became sick? Tell us how this all started.
He never had an ear infection until he was about 18 months old. And we took him to the doctor. He had an ear infection. And it seemed like we would get him well, and then maybe a month, not even sometimes a month, he would get sick again with an ear infection. And it just kept getting worse. And finally, in November, the doctor said, we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to do tubes or something because we're just not able to keep him well. Mm-hmm. I think that's when he didn't eat as much, and he just didn't look as good. Looking back, I think that God didn't let me see how bad it was, because I don't know that I could have stood it if I'd have really knew what was going on. But looking at him now, you can tell that he just wasn't as healthy.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's what a lot of parents experience that. I mean, you're getting tubes, and I did. My child had tubes and had her adenoids taken out, a second set of tubes. Yeah. So what did they find when they went in there to put his tubes in?
They found on the left side of his nasal cavity a very large mass.
And what did they say about it?
We sat down. The doctor said the surgery has went great, but, and then when he said the but, of course, my heart dropped. He said, we found a mass. He said, I don't know what we're dealing with. I don't want us to get upset or anything. But he said, you're going to come back in a week, and we need to do a CT scan. He said, I don't know what this is. It does look like a polyp, but it doesn't look like a polyp all in the same sense.
Okay, and so you went back in.
We went back in, had the CT scan. We were hoping that, he would say, this looks like a polyp. We're going to take it out. It'll be no big deal.
Yes.
Well, we didn't get the news that we had hoped for. He came back and he said, this thing doesn't really look like a polyp. It does, but it doesn't. The size of it is not normal. A kid his age should not have something this big in that small of an area. So he said, we're going to have to go back and do a biopsy to see if it's cancer. So we did the biopsy then within 2 days of that.
And I think you had told me that the doctor used the word massive, that it was massive.
Yeah, it was huge, massive. He said it's massive.
So you went in for the biopsy, and what did they find?
It wasn't cancer, praise God, mm-hmm. Which we were So I guess concerned that it was, because it was like everything that he would say that it wasn't cancer, there would be another thing that he would say that would make him think that it was cancer. So it was kind of like, and then the day that we had the biopsy, he actually showed us the CT scan, and we saw how big it was. And he said, a polyp is normally watery.
Mm-hmm.
This is not watery. It's more thick and meaty. And he said, that's not a good sign. So, of course, that wasn't the news we were hoping for before the biopsy.
No, of course not. So after the biopsy, what happened?
We went back for our regular checkup because the doctor said since he had been through so much just in that short time frame for his age, he had been put to sleep 3 times in like 10 days.
Wow.
So he didn't want him to be rushed since it wasn't cancer. He didn't want to put a rush. He wanted his body to heal.
Okay.
So we went back to the doctor. He said, and Walt had been complaining about his nose hurting in between that time period.
I bet.
He would, rub it, and he said, Mommy, nose hurt.
Aww.
And when we went to the doctor, I said, hey, he's complaining about this. And he said, okay, we gotta get this thing out of there. I don't really want him to be in pain and stuff. So we decided, he said, we're going to schedule surgery that day. And we had it scheduled for May the 6th. Then we got it rescheduled to April the 22nd.
And that was just a regular reschedule, or were we already in this whole COVID thing?
We were not in the COVID thing when we had it scheduled for April the 22nd.
Okay.
It was like maybe a week later. My husband had a cancellation with a thing he was going to have to go to, so he was available because he didn't want to have the surgery done if he could not be there.
Yes.
So that's why we moved it up to April the 22nd, because he was going to be home.
Okay. And then it got changed again because
it actually got canceled with all the COVID thing. They called me about a week before and said, hey, we're going to have to cancel this.
I bet that was really scary to you.
Yeah, because I guess before we even had tubes, and I know tubes is a very minor thing, everybody has them. I just did not have a peace about it, if that makes sense. And I was asking everybody I knew to pray, and I actually had our church pray over him because I felt like he needed that in this instance. And I think that was just God prompting me, hey, you need to be ready for something.
Katie, you would be so amazed. The last few people I've had on here have talked about how in their gut they knew that something wasn't right, or they just didn't have a peace about what was happening with their health or with their child's health. So,
and I told Mom, I said, I've done everything that I know to do to keep him well before that, and nothing was working. So that to me was like, hey, something's not right.
Yes. And then now you had told me that somebody in your church made you all a prayer quilt. Was that for the biopsy, or was that for the
from our church? She actually heard about everything that was going on with Walt and made him a prayer quilt.
A nurse did?
No. Well, yeah, I think she is a nurse.
Okay.
Her name is Alicia Casey. Super sweet. I went and got it the morning of his biopsy, and I just, in that moment, to think that somebody had been praying for my little boy and had her church pray over it. I got to witness to so many people with that, because I get to say, hey, my little boy is literally being covered in prayer today. And it was just an awesome tool to be able to use to witness to people.
Yes. Okay, so COVID kind of puts you on hold, and then you finally get a date for the surgery to remove this. Is that correct?
About a week or two before we got the surgery scheduled, his nose started bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
And I had put in a call to the doctor, and he said, I'm just concerned. It should not be doing that. And I didn't know, but my mom had been researching it, and she said that was like one of the worst case scenarios that could have been happening. That was like one of the biggest signs for it to be cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, we can't wait. We've got to get this done.
Okay, so you get this rescheduled. Tell us what happened when you went in for the procedure.
We went in, right before we went in, he said, the mass was so large, he was hoping to go around his sinuses. He didn't want to do anything to damage his sinus cavities. But with bleeding and him being so concerned, he said, I want to get in there. I want to get it all taken care of. He said, I'm going to have to go through his sinuses. He basically told us, this is not good. This is not good that it's doing this. I think we've missed something.
So scary. I can't imagine how that feels as a parent.
So of course, and during the whole time, which I mean, God's timing is perfect in everything, but his timing and his will or his hand, you could see it now looking back. It was literally in every aspect of this, because I had such a peace. And I had actually told our pastor's wife, because I told her what he had said, and I said, I just don't believe this. I don't believe that it is. I said, I just really believe it's the grace of God just letting us get this done. Because as a parent, it was just like, I wasn't free until Walt was better. Mm-hmm. I mean, I trusted the Lord in this the whole time, but as a mom, if your kid's hurting, you're hurting.
Yes.
You're never going to be, I don't think, 100% with your son or your child being sick. It does something to you physically and mentally.
Yes. And you had said, now, was this when you went in for the surgery, that because you had prayed that God would give you a really good doctor?
Yes.
Was that for the surgery or for the biopsy?
That was before he had tubes. I had prayed because we couldn't get him well. I said, Lord, if tubes are what's best for Walt, I want Walt to have tubes. If this is not what's best for Walt, let him heal on his own. Because I want him to heal. I don't want him to have any kind of surgery. But if it's not your will, let us know. And of course, after that, he got sick again, and he actually had to have shots. The antibiotic didn't even work that time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I had been praying for that, because I mean, I've had experiences where, your doctor doesn't see eye to eye and it just doesn't go good. And with your kid, you want to see eye to eye, and you want somebody that goes above and beyond. And yes. I prayed that we would get a man that was, and he answered that prayer.
Yes. And you told me something that stuck out to me. I don't know if you remember when we talked a week or so ago, you said that the nurse came out and said, Mama, I know you're scared, but he's got the best doctor in the whole wide world. And that just sticks out to me, because God is our healer. Mm-hmm. And he truly had the best doctor in the whole wide world. So tell me what happens when they go in to do the surgery to remove this mass.
Before they said, he said, this shouldn't take too long, because I'm going to go through the sinus cavities. And he said, maybe 30 minutes and he'll be out. Well, they had called me when they got back there and said, hey, he's starting the surgery. So I thought, well, maybe, this will be done quick. Well, it seemed like it took a little bit longer than they said. And of course, I was praying, everybody was praying during that time. But like I said, I had that peace during all of it. Well, he comes back, and you can just, looking back now, I didn't have time, but you can kind of just see the amazement on his face. Like, he sits down, he's like, well, we go in there to do the surgery, or I went in there, he said, there's nothing there. He said, there's no mass. The only thing that's there is a little bit of scar tissue, or inflamed tissue, sorry. He said, I had to go into the other side, the other nasal cavity, to check to make sure that I was seeing things right. And before that, we had been praying that God would either shrink it or take the mass away, because we didn't want for what sinuses to be damaged, and we didn't want, you know, to him to have to go through any more than what he'd already been through. And I know kids go through far worse, but as a parent, you want, you know, it to go as smoothly as possible.
Of course.
And I had actually put on a prayer chain that I'm in through Facebook. I'd asked everyone I said, please pray specifically that it would shrink or be gone. And our prayers to a T were answered.
Yes. Yes. God is so good.
It was a absolute miracle.
Yes, that's amazing. That's so exciting. And I'm so thankful for that, as I know you are. Tell me, your dates for your surgery kept getting rescheduled, but you feel like there was a significance to that. Will you talk about that?
The night before we had the surgery, a girl that I go to church with sent me her devotion, and it was 2 Kings 5:6. And she said, I believe God works in dates. And I said, well, you know, I believe, me too, I believe he works in everything. I think it's significance. And I'll read you the verse that it is, if you don't care.
No, please do. And this is 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 6.
Yes.
Okay.
And May the 6th was his original surgery date also.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool. But it said
5-6.
5-6 was his
May
original.
the 6th.
Which 2 Kings 5:6. It says, then he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which said, now be advised, when this letter comes to you, that I have sent Naaman my servant to you, that he may heal him of his leprosy. And it's talking about healing.
Yes.
Of a disease.
Amazing. Amazing. So your date had gotten.
It had gotten
changed, but it got changed back. It ended up being back on that date.
The first date that we had originally scheduled. Because I remember telling Mom, I said, they were going to do it Thursday, 5/7.
Uh-huh.
The doctor called and he has said, I have worked all day, and the only day, and this was Tuesday, he had surgery on Wednesday. He said, the only time we're going to be able to do it is tomorrow at such time. And I said, okay, that's fine. And I called Mom, and of course I was boohooing because I was like, God, you've had a plan. You knew that it was going to be this day all along. COVID, all this other worldly stuff does not matter.
It doesn't stop God.
It doesn't stop him. And I said, Mom, do you realize what date this is? And I think my husband actually called me right after that. And he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm crying. He said, why? I said, do you realize that was his original date? I said, to me, that was just awesome. Because we've been through all that, and hey, he already knows.
It's just more confirmation.
Yeah.
I think he healed Walt.
Yeah, he healed him.
Yes. So, Katie, as we get ready to end this interview, I just want to ask you, what do you want to say to other listeners out there? People are listening to this podcast because probably they have had health issues themselves, or they have health issues, or their children or parents or somebody has health issues. And so they're listening to these stories of hope. What would you say? What do you want them to know about you, or what would you want to say to them?
I would want them to not lose hope. I don't think God, or be fearful. I know God doesn't want us to be in a state of fear or anxiety or anxious. It says in the Bible so many times, fear not. And this has helped me with that. I have suffered with anxiety and stuff for years, but I have noticed through all this, I'm not the same woman that I was when I came out of this. And I think God uses the storms in our lives to mold us and make us into the people that are for his glory.
Absolutely.
And, I want them to have hope through this, and I want the person that has cancer that they give 3 weeks to live, I want them to have hope that God can heal them if that's his will.
Yes.
And as far as what I would like for people to know about me, I hope they know that I love the Lord and that I want to work for his kingdom and let other people know about him through my life. I hope when I leave somewhere or I meet someone, I hope they say, well, she knew the Lord and she was about his work.
Yes. Well, I certainly see that in you, Katie, and I know everybody else who's listening will too. So I'm so thankful that you allowed me to interview you and to share Walt's story. Walt is how old now?
He's 2.5.
He's 2.5, you said, and he's feeling good. And
he has actually jumped a size in clothes.
And this wasn't long ago. Today is May the 21st.
Yes, and
this has been a short time for people who may be listening later at another date. We're doing this interview on May 21st. So that was May 6th.
Yeah. But yeah, he's thriving. I mean, that's all you can say.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I can't wait to see what the Lord does with your story and with Walt's story. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you sharing with us.
Thank you for the opportunity to let me tell what God's done for us.
And for everybody listening, we will see you soon for another inspiring story. Thanks for joining us.